sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've played it well, and I really like that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
A new week starts right here, right now, live on a Monday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across that SportsGrid network. It includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time to start off a new week, yet to look back on the weekend that was a ton of news around the National Football League, including a blockbuster deal. We will break it all down. We'll go around the association from a big Sunday slate, our second to last weekend of the regular season at the high major level in college basketball, including a big Sunday in the Big Ten in conference tournaments began last night as well. Hello, A-Sun. We're getting ready to go now in the month of March. And, of course, we will spend just a few moments recapping Donnie's two favorite events of the year. The NFL Scouting Combine this weekend in Indianapolis, and the Academy Awards, the Oscars last night in Hollywood.
Let's start here. The month of February is tough for a lot of people. Post-Super Bowl, it's cold in the Northeast. You're just looking for that glimmer of spring. And the glimmer of spring doesn't come from the Masters. It doesn't come from the NFL Draft. Spring for me is like, you know what? Donnie saw his shadow because the Combine is actually over at this point. Good. Look how refreshed and ready I am. What a waste of time it was last week. Now it's time to get back to work in March, and I can't wait to do it with you, Ben.
DRS, I thought you were going to say when you see the A-Sun tournament bracket, that's when you are fully locked in, because DRS will be breaking down team totals. What?
Duval. Come on, A-Sun.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dolphins. Oh, yeah, we're going to get some Dolphin talk on the Early Line. DRS, let's go around the weekend that was in the world of sports. We start in the association. Big Sunday slate, big matchup in Boston between the reigning NBA champs and the Celtics, and the team that won an NBA championship just a few years ago in the Denver Nuggets. Both in good position to make another dope, deep postseason run this year around the association. And yet yesterday inside TD Garden, it was the C's holding off the Nugs. Big home victory, 110-103. The Celtics do cover as a 5.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, down a couple starters the past few games here for the Boston Celtics. Didn't matter here on Sunday because they used the three-point line. If the Boston Celtics with volume are going to shoot 41% or better, let's just call it 40% or better, they're going to win on most nights here. 110-103, not impressive on the scoreboard here. But again, factoring in no Drew Holiday in the lineup and also no Kristaps Porzingis and handling a very good Nuggets team, good win for the Boston Celtics and a nice bounce back.
Jamal Murray, 26 points. Christian Brown into the starting five, 24 points. But an off night from Nikola Jokic, just 20, 14, and 9, failing to give a triple-double. Those are the very high standards. The Celtics had a 13-point lead at the halftime break, holding on in the second half. Elsewhere, let's go to Los Angeles. A battle for L.A. 2 times in 3 days this weekend. And both games go the way of the Lakers. Last night against the Clippers at home inside the Crypto.com arena, the Lakers win their 6th consecutive game, a 6-point win, 108-102. Weird line movement toward the end of last night by the time we got to tip, but the Lakers do win their 6th consecutive game with a victory over the crosstown foes.
Inefficient night for LeBron James, but efficient night for Luka Doncic yesterday. And also, we understand why the score ended up 108-102. Man, my guy only played 9 minutes last night. Norm Powell walked off again with that same sore hamstring. Things aren't looking up for the Clippers, but the focus now in Los Angeles is not the Clippers. It is the Los Angeles Lakers starting to come into their own right now and continue that hot streak.
The Clippers closed as a 2.5-point road favorite, if you will, against the Lakers, 29-9 out of Luka Doncic, and a good night off the bench for Dalton Knecht. The Lakers have won 6 straight. They have covered in 5 of these 6 consecutive victories. Speaking of winning games in a row, Michigan State just pulled off one of the best 5-game stretches you will ever see in college basketball. 5 consecutive quad one wins, including a home victory yesterday inside the Breslin Center against Wisconsin. Huge road win, or home win, 71-62 for Sparty, knocking off 11th ranked Wisconsin. Michigan State covers as a 4.5-point home favorite.
Did you know that the Michigan State Spartans were top 5 in the country at defending the three-point line? Wisconsin's been very effective there until yesterday. 5 of 32 from the three-point line, 15% not going to get it done. And by the way, Sparty was down 2 at the break. Nice second half to win that by 11, winning it going away. The Spartans, the best team in the Big Ten.
Yes, they certainly are. They need 1 victory in their last 2 games, including next weekend's home regular season finale against the rivals in Michigan to clinch a Big Ten title, the 11th one under Tom Izzo. And one of the reasons that Michigan State only needs 1 win in their final 2, the Wolverines got beat bad at home yesterday in Ann Arbor inside the Chrysler Center. 15th ranked Michigan loses by 20 to an Illinois team that is starting to find its footing in the most important month of the calendar in college basketball. 93-73. The victory for the Illini on the road yesterday, winning outright as a 3.5-point road underdog.
These were the expectations we thought for the Fighting Illini to start the season. And also, sometimes it's just so simple. If you make 10 more triples than your opponent, I find it hard to believe that you're going to lose that basketball game. And of course, the Illini won by 20 in the big house over there. Goodness.
After getting beat by 43 points, largest margin of defeat in program history inside the Garden against Duke, Illinois has responded with 2 consecutive 20-point victories, blowing out Iowa, covering as a double-digit favorite, and a road win as an underdog yesterday against the Maize and Blue. Just 1 more game remaining for the Illini in this regular season, trying to get to win number 20. A big weekend of NFL news outside of the guys in shorts working out, running fast, and lifting heavy weights in Indianapolis. But anytime the NFL convenes on one location, you are going to get some headlines. The Jets, after moving on from Aaron Rodgers, plan to part ways with Davante Adams as well. A clean slate and a fresh start, not only for Davante, but of course the new organization in New York, led by new head coach Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, let's forget about Davante Adams for a second. I love what the New York Jets are doing. Build the foundation, get the cancers out of the locker room, rebuild that thing. Jets fans, actually an optimistic and refreshing season in 2025. That's coming.
Yeah, it is. In DRS, that's what you could hope for the Jets to maybe build some optimism, even though the success level and the expectation is not going to be nearly as high as it was the last few years, and yet they never lived up to it. Devontae Adams now on the open market. We'll see what he has left in the tank in his NFL career. It is tag season around the National Football League. Just a few more days to place that franchise tag on guys you want to keep on the roster. And Osa Odighizuwa will be placed under the franchise tag by the Dallas Cowboys if no deal is reached. If you tag somebody, you still have until the middle of July to agree to that long-term extension. And we know that Jerry Jones loves to drag his feet just a little bit in terms of those big contracts.
It's unbelievable how poor they are at actually running a franchise. Boy, they make a lot of money, but they have no idea how the salary cap works here. So Dak Prescott's going to count $90 million against the salary cap. You just signed CeeDee Lamb to one of the biggest contracts in wide receiver history. Micah Parsons will be the highest paid defensive player of all time. And then a defensive tackle you're going to pay who's not a top 5 tackle, top 5 money. Only the Dallas Cowboys. How about that?
Only the Dallas Cowboys. Yesterday in Hollywood, it was the Oscars, the Academy Awards, and DRS, as we predicted on Friday. Honora, the hefty favorite at a minus 200 price, goes home a big winner yesterday, winning Best Picture at the Oscars.
How about that? By the way, I did see the show Flow was actually on HBO a couple times the past couple weeks. My daughter was watching it, so I saw Flow actually won an award last night. So there, I did actually see one of the movies. How about that?
Best animated film, I believe. Flow went home, the first ever Oscar win for the country of Latvia. How about that? There you go. What a weekend it was. We continue with NFL news, including a blockbuster deal featuring the Commanders and the Niners. Next. Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Early Line, live right here on this Monday morning to start off a new week on the SportsGrid Network. He is Donnie. I am Ben. A big weekend around the National Football League. It was Combine weekend in Indianapolis. We saw the prospects looking to take that leap to the next level, working out in Indianapolis. But outside of what we saw inside Lucas Oil Stadium, a big weekend of NFL headlines as well. Saturday afternoon, a deal we expected at a certain point this offseason did come through. The San Francisco 49ers, who said they were going to honor the permission to trade Deebo Samuel, his time in San Francisco coming to a close, made quick work, sending Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders in exchange for just a fifth rounder in return to the Bay. Deebo Samuel, now a member of the Commanders, DRS.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. Let's start here at this point because, when I saw that tweet goes down, and many people that just play Madden or understand names like, wait a second, you just got Deebo Samuel for a fifth-round pick. What a steal. They're cooking in Washington. 2 to 3 years ago, I would absolutely agree. But let's understand what Deebo Samuel is at this point in his career. Playing with the best play caller, most innovative play caller in the sport. You saw a couple years ago, 77 catches, 1,400 yards, also had 365 yards rushing on the ground. That was the pinnacle that it got. Sign him to a big deal, and what has he turned out to be? Looks like he can't catch, not as explosive, easier to tackle, and injured all the time. We're not saying, I'm not saying, at an age 30 season, he can't get in shape, get motivated, and actually help the Washington football team. But you're not getting the Deebo Samuel of a couple years ago. You're getting the Deebo Samuel of what we saw last year. And also understand this. This is a San Francisco 49ers team that feels they're still in the window to win a Super Bowl. And all of a sudden, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are on the trade block, along with we're trying to restructure, get a new contract, I should say, for our young quarterback in Brock Purdy. So buyer beware at this point. The Niners know what they're doing, and Deebo Samuel looked absolutely disinterested last year, and his play actually proved it. Now, also, you see the pictures in the offseason where he's wearing the Eagles jersey. I'm like, man, has the guy even worked out in months at this point? We get all that. At the top of his game, Deebo is one of the best weapons in football. He hasn't been that for quite some time now.
DRS, after his 2021 campaign, his third in the National Football League, he was an AP All-Pro first team. He signed a large contract extension to remain in San Francisco. Now it's not nearly as large, but he's still owed over $21 million entering 2025. The last 3 years has not been great for Deebo Samuel, at least based on that lone Pro Bowl season and as a first-team All-Pro. In this year specifically, DRS, with everybody in San Francisco dealing with a litany of injury issues, Deebo Samuel largely did not. Played in 15 games, started 15 games. When Brandon Ayuk was out, when Christian McCaffrey was out, when George Kittle was dealing with nagging injuries. Heck, even when Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall were not in the fold, Deebo Samuel was largely there. And you would expect, with the bright offensive play caller that is Kyle Shanahan, and the versatile weapon that Deebo Samuel can be offensively, if there was any guy that could have stepped up in that stage when the Niners needed it most, it would have been Deebo Samuel. And largely based on what that expectation was, he certainly did not live up to it. Now, he doesn't have to go to Washington and be the guy. It's Terry McLaurin. Heck, he might not even be that number 2 wide receiver. It could be De'Ami Brown and Adam Peters, who is the GM of this Commanders franchise, a former front office exec in San Francisco, might understand everything that Deebo Samuel can present in not having to be that number 1 target for Jaden Daniels. It's a good move for the Commanders, and it did not cost them much, just a 5th-round selection. But expecting Deebo Samuel to be that Pro Bowl performer, to be a first-team All-Pro, as you alluded to, DRS, those days seem as though they might be in the rear view.
Yeah, and also understand this. The salary cap is going up, so Deebo does make a lot of money, but Washington does have a lot of money to play with. And if you're looking for an upgrade in the offense, if he can get back to somewhat what he was a few years ago, it's a positive move, a veteran guy, and sometimes you just need a change of scenery to reinvigorate yourself. But it's just understanding the facts of when you just see the headlines, like, oh my goodness, Deebo for a 5th rounder. A lot of stuff plays into that, and as you pointed out, Deebo's going to make over $20 million, and he's probably looking for a new deal based off his last couple years. Who knows how much that new deal is actually going to be, but agreed upon here. I'm interested to see what the San Francisco 49ers rest of their offseason actually looks like because, you sign Deebo, you sign Ayuk, and it could be where both of those guys are out of town. That's not a very good business model at this point to put up, but we'll find out what they do. But for Washington, a team on the come-up right now, had a very good season last year, making it to the NFC Championship game. That's an upgrade in their wide receiving core, and they'll take that.
No doubt about it. And you still have Cliff Kingsbury there as the offensive coordinator as well. He can design a scheme that features Deebo Samuel where he needs to be. I think it's a good move for Washington. Is it a move that makes the Commanders more of a legitimate threat around the NFC? Probably not. For San Francisco, DRS, on the other side of this coin, it felt like the changing of an era. That Deebo Samuel requested that permission to seek a trade. San Francisco honors that request, gets a deal done by the end of Combine weekend early on this offseason. Of course, the main focus in San Fran this offseason is paying Brock Purdy. Not a matter of if, more so when. And really the main question is how much. That would be priority number one. But George Kittle could need a new deal. Christian McCaffrey was signed last offseason. Same with Nick Bosa. They should be fine other areas. But the 49ers at a 12-1 price to win the Super Bowl. Sixth best price overall. Third best out of the NFC, only behind the Eagles and the Lions. That expectation, the odds optimism, Donnie, is back for the 49ers entering 2025.
It is, and it's surprising because this is one of those years where so much is up in the air. Like Debo's gone. That was one of those cornerstone players of the franchise for the past 5 years. Brandon Ayuk's coming back from a torn ACL, who they said that they might even be willing to move coming up over the next couple of months. You take a look at Christian McCaffrey. Is he ever going to get back to any semblance of the player he was for the 49ers? And Brock Purdy, there's no guarantees that he will be the quarterback for the 49ers next year. So a lot of moving parts, but a lot of faith from the FanDuel Sportsbook and odds makers saying, you know what? Good organization. They'll figure it out. They'll have a solid team by the time we get to September.
Of course, injuries the main story in San Francisco. Still probably a down year even with those significant injuries. 6-11 the overall record. They enter 2024 a co-favorite alongside KC to win a Lombardi trophy. The Niners prior to this year had made it to 4 of the last 5 NFC championship games with 2 Super Bowl bids and 2 Super Bowl losses to Kansas City. Elsewhere on the West Coast, we'll break it down next. Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Last week during Combine Week in the National Football League, basically every day, the main story was not a Combine prospect working out or an interview out of Indianapolis. It was everybody being together around the NFL, and the main topic of conversation, it seemed, was Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Donnie and I were breaking down this entire scenario for the last 2 weeks. Last week, a daily update on the speculation that started to feel like a rumor and then really had some legs in a disconnect, whether monetary or personal relationships between the Rams front office, Stafford, and his representation. Then the Giants and the Raiders got in the fold, seemingly a front runner to trade for Matthew Stafford at the age of 37, about to embark on year number 17 around the NFL. And the final update that Donnie and I brought you on Friday morning was that Matthew Stafford was set to meet with the Rams inside the facility to come to some terms of agreement, either that he would stay in LA, sign a new deal, or be like, all right, we're looking for that trade partner at this moment. And Donnie, by the time we got to Friday, it seemed more likely that Matthew Stafford would be playing somewhere else in 2025 than Los Angeles. And after all of that, an agreement has been reached by LA and Matthew Stafford. He will remain with the Rams in 2025, which always seemed to be the thing that made the most sense, was the smartest move for all parties involved. So the Rams, a division-round playoff team a year ago, could run it back with a promising young club.
Yeah, you know, in the NFL, like, I don't know, does the NFL ever, like, you know, dip into waters and say we're going to award the Nobel Peace Prize to one of our players here? You say, well, why would you say that?
I think
Matthew Stafford in one day, Ben, saved 3 franchises in one day. Nobody's ever done that in the history of the NFL, because not only was it stupid for him to leave Los Angeles, who knows where they would have ended quarterback, and automatically, in my book, would not have been a playoff contender next year, no matter who they rookie quarterback Sam Darnold, downgrade right there, and then taking a look at maybe the 2 stupidest franchises in professional sports right now, the Giants and the Raiders. So Stafford saved LA, made sure they're a Super Bowl contender next year, saved the New York Giants fans from being obliterated for the next 5 years with no quarterback in the future, and the same exact thing for the Las Vegas Raiders. So for me and my money, who knows what it's going to turn out to be? Is it going to be 2 years, 3 years, something extended? It's clear Matthew Stafford wanted to be paid. They played chicken, and Matthew Stafford won. But on one day, one player saved 3 franchises. I've never seen that before in my life.
The actual terms of the contract have not come out just yet, what exactly it is. Of course, we had reports that Matthew Stafford was seeking $50 million at least on annual average value, making $40 at this current moment in Los Angeles, age of 37, year number 17 ahead in the National Football League. The league year technically starts in 9 days, a week from Wednesday. But the tampering period, if you will, or the non-tampering period where you can contact free agents, starts on Monday, a week from right now. So when the deal sheet is signed, I'm sure we will learn what that value is. Obviously, a raise is coming for Matthew Stafford. But Donnie, to your point, a Nobel Peace Prize as well. It made no sense for the Giants or the Raiders to give up what seemed to be a king's ransom and then a lot of money for a 37-year-old quarterback. At best, probably has 2 more good years in the National Football League. It made no sense for the Rams to say, we're comfortable with Jimmy G, with Jimmy Garoppolo as our starter. We know we can be a playoff team once again. It made no sense for Matthew Stafford at the tail end of his NFL career to not compete for a Lombardi trophy where the Rams were his best situation to do so. I am happy that common sense prevailed for every party involved. And Donnie, one of the reasons it felt as though the Rams might then not end up as Matthew Stafford's team in 2025, their Super Bowl price entering Friday was 32-1, moved back by $10 to 42-1. Now Matthew Stafford is happy in Los Angeles, a 31-1 price once again for LA.
Exactly. And again, the moral of the story, horrible franchises with horrible players on their team should not be going out getting a 17-year veteran as their quote-unquote future quarterback. Tank and find your future quarterback when he's 21 years old, and if he's good, you got him for the next 15 years. Matthew Stafford to the Raiders and the Giants never made any sense. I can't even believe we had conversation topics on this for 2 weeks because they never made any sense. Common sense prevailed, and it's brilliant.
Stafford delivered last year. The numbers don't look all that gaudy, but still was the guy to lead them and provide the toughest test to the eventual Super Bowl champs in Philadelphia. So what do the Giants and Raiders do now? Find out next. Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
So Matthew Stafford is staying in Los Angeles with the Rams entering 2025. What does that mean for the 2 teams that seem to be his biggest suitors and most interested? The New York Giants and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Giants hold the 3rd overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Raiders hold the 6th overall selection in the 2025 NFL Draft. Both teams winning games in the final 3 weeks of the regular season that probably cost them the opportunity to draft 1st overall. So what are the G-men going to do? Let's start in New York. This report from ESPN's Adam Schefter on Friday afternoon with Matthew Stafford remaining with the Rams. The New York Giants are investigating all veteran QB options, including Aaron Rodgers, per sources. Now, Rodgers doesn't live in New York, although he does, I'm sure, have a very comfortable situation whenever he comes back to the East Coast. But it would not be a very far trip from what he has experienced the last 2 years to head to the New York Giants. Donnie, the caption of that graphic that we had there was really exclamation point and question mark tied in. Yeah. I think that is the natural follow-up. Why would the Giants explore the option of having Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback in 2025?
Oh, it's simple. It's real simple. You know what the simplistic part of this is? Their general manager and their head coach are in self-preservation mode, not what's best for the franchise. And that is the most dangerous territory you can be in. This is why it was so refreshing on the opposite side of the building, let's just say, with the New York Jets going, you know what? I probably could win a couple more games with Aaron Rodgers. And if we keep Devontae Adams, that'll help him out. And why don't we do that? Because I don't want to get off on the wrong foot and win 5 games in my first year and then everybody get mad at me. No, they're going like, no. If we win 5 games next year, that means we're on the upswing and we're going to build this roster here from an aging talent perspective to a young, fierce, and hungry component. When the New York Giants are saying, okay, let me just get a Band-Aid here at the quarterback position. I have one decent left tackle. Everybody else is terrible on my offensive line. I have one really good wide receiver. Nobody else worth any consequence. I have no quarterback on my roster right now who's even young, who I could think could be a starter, and I have a half of a running back in Tyrone Tracy. So let's go out and get a veteran quarterback that's going to make this better. No, it's going to be a disaster. So when we take a look at some things where, like, the Giants, remember last year they brought up the most horrendous uniforms you've ever seen. We all laughed at and then had an atrocious season. The Giants should come out with a brand new uniform this year that has a picture of a tank on the side of their helmet here, because that's what the Giants should be doing until they find their franchise quarterback. It's simple. Giants this year, fans, understand this. Join in on the process. Tank completely. Blow out the general manager, the head coach, and start fresh. The Jets already have one leg up on the New York Giants here heading into the next season.
It is why, DRS, when I was told by certain Giants fans that don't worry, that we beat Indianapolis as a touchdown underdog at home to squander the opportunity to pick first overall. We are going to draft in the top 3. We'll be number 1. We'll tank. We'll get Arch Manning. Our future is bright with a new GM and a new head coach after Daboll and Shane are fired in this offseason. I said you can't always guarantee that, and what you have done in 2024, which was under your control, is laughable, because by all indications, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane understand they have one more year. And if it looks like 2024, when they only picked up 3 wins, and it looks like 2025 is expected to be at a 200-1 number, tied for the longest price around the NFL to win a Lombardi Trophy, Brian Daboll knows he's about to be an offensive assistant somewhere, and Joe Shane understands he's working as a scout, having to go to college football stadiums each and every Saturday to find a new gig. That's why none of this makes sense. However, here's what I would say. The acquisition of Aaron Rodgers, in my mind, does not get you an additional win or an additional 2 wins. It doesn't even make you a contender or highlight the best of what Malik Neighbors can do. Now, the numbers this past year with the New York Jets, not overly terrible, but we watched Aaron Rodgers. We know what he was. We know what he is. Donnie, to me, if the Giants sign Aaron Rodgers, the win total remains the exact same, which is probably 4.5, 5.5 entering 2025.
And the best part about that, too, is they sign him behind an aging quarterback behind that terrible offensive line. But you know what happens? He probably goes out and makes them get Devontae Adams, which then alienates Neighbors, just like last year you did with Garrett Wilson on the outside. Just say no at this point to aging quarterbacks. What's, like, if you honestly, and it's speaking directly to Giants fans, like, winning Super Bowls is what it's supposed to be about. Does any fan care, like, oh, please just get me Aaron Rodgers so I can watch a 7-win football team? Or you're like, you know what? You know what's even more fun sometimes? Building all the way through, understanding your organization has a foundation that can build on over the next 5 to 6 years, and you can watch winning, enjoyable football. Band-Aids never work in the NFL, particularly when your roster is so talent depleted like the Giants are. And also, Ben, you brought up a good point here. Like, oh, it's no big deal that the Giants beat the Indianapolis Colts. We can always trade up and get a quarterback. So now you're telling me you're giving up a first-round draft pick just to get your quarterback and this year or next year's first-round pick? That makes no sense at all. When if you were a smart franchise, and I date this back too because sometimes I just look from an Eagles perspective. Do you remember when everybody got upset when they tanked the Washington game, the final game of the season during the COVID year? You know what that got them? Devontae Smith, because they knew winning that football game meant absolutely nothing, and you're just hurting yourself. The general manager, it's up to him to tank a football game. But you know what he did? He's like, hey, you know what? I can sell this at idiot owner Mara right now and say, boy, did you see us win that football game? I can do this again next year. And he bought it hook, line, and sinker. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And that's the issue as well with retaining Brian Daboll and Joe Shane as your top 2 guys, head coach and general manager. They're in limbo. They're sitting ducks. If it doesn't work out as is expected, all right, goodbye. We're going to start fresh in 2025 or in 2026, which makes sense. But this year in 2025 is this weird limbo area where Shane and Daboll are trying to win games, but the organization as a whole understands that's probably not going to work, so you send them away. None of it makes sense in New York. Neither does the acquisition of Aaron Rodgers, even if you got him cheap, even if Aaron Rodgers was okay. Not the MVP level Aaron Rodgers, maybe not nearly as bad as we had seen. Again, he wasn't terrible this year in 2024, but you look at the performances. Never once did you trust Aaron Rodgers on the football field with an opportunity to lead a game-winning drive that he would do just that. But that's the issue. Because this guy has been in the NFL for 2 decades, and we know how great he once was, we still think in the back of our minds, maybe, just maybe, look at how he still zips it out there with the flick of the wrist. If the Giants are a 5-win football team with Aaron Rodgers, we will still laugh at them. If the Giants are a 5-win football team with insert X veteran, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock on retention, heck, bringing Daniel Jones back. If they're a 5-win football team with whatever veteran quarterback, we'll say good for the New York Giants. We hope they put themselves in a position to draft and have a brighter future. But Aaron Rodgers, despite the fact he probably doesn't lift the expectation for actual successful football, will always have that attention and notoriety around him.
You're right, and that's a great thought process to bring up, by the way. Daniel Jones is the perfect quarterback for the New York Giants next year. He's great in the locker room. He's not going to get anybody upset. He's not going to backstab anybody. He's going to lose a ton of football games, and you will improve your draft position. Giants, don't put a Band-Aid on this season. Just let it go. Tank it as many talented draft picks as you can get and hopefully turn them into superstar football players here. That's the way to do it. Not Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, or a quarterback that's going to win you 1 or 2 extra football games. That's not the goal next year. Your goal actually is to go 0-17 to get a really good quarterback that you don't have to trade up for in the next draft.
So here's also the interesting component of this all. Combine weekend in Indianapolis is done. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders did not throw, but they still by far and away remain the top 2 quarterbacks expected to go at the end of April. We have seen the odds. The Titans were a hefty favorite to make that first overall pick, but there is some scuttlebutt in speculation leaving this weekend in Indy. The Giants are aggressively pursuing moving up the draft board. We will talk about those odds at the end of this opening hour. But we talked the G-Men. Now it's time for the Raiders. What are they going to do with QB? Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The next versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, did they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Plan B or perhaps C or D for the New York Giants might be investigating the availability of Aaron Rodgers to bring him back to New York. But on the other side of things, Plan B for the Las Vegas Raiders. What exactly is it after Matthew Stafford remains in Los Angeles? Raiders, new GM and John Spytek, new minority ownership with Tom Brady, and of course the veteran head coach in Pete Carroll. Why should I tell you? The graphic is right there. The Raiders are investigating a variety of veteran QB options, including Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and maybe, just maybe, Sam Darnold. Donnie, you have enjoyed, I guess you could say, the hire of Pete Carroll, at least in the idea that he can steady the ship in Las Vegas. So if that is the theme, perhaps, for the Raiders entering 2025, to be more of a stable organization, what is the best option for Plan B for the Raiders?
You know, here's the shame of it all. Tom Brady might be the biggest winner in professional sports history, and he's so competitive, we know that. Look at how long he played, and in crunch time, there was no better positional player in the history of sport, including Michael Jordan, than Tom Brady. And that's what I love about the guy. But the fact that he's now the de facto owner/GM of the Raiders upsets me just a little bit, because I know how competitive that he wants to be and wants to put a winner on the field, and doesn't matter how he does it. When sometimes, Ben, I say, make me commissioner of the league, make me general managers and owners of some of these football teams. And I say, Tom, you're going to get everything you wished for. Yeah. You're still in your 40s. You can be around here for 30 or 40 years. Let's build it the right way and dominate year after year after year. So he goes out and gets Pete Carroll, because he knows that's a guy that's been around championships in college football and professional football. He's always been a player's coach. They're going to enjoy playing for him. You're going to get the best out of your football team. But that doesn't mean we want to extend to say, you know what? We probably should win about 5 games this year, maybe 4 games. Let's see if we can win 8 or 9 and maybe challenge for a wild card spot. That's not what we should do. So when I saw that graphic on the screen, and it's explaining to us which quarterback they're going after, they were trying to swing for the fences and hit a home run with Matthew Stafford. But for me, Justin Fields would be the perfect quarterback. Not going to cost you a lot of money. Russell Wilson is basically out of gas, but he's been with Pete before. He's going to be a professional on and off the football field just to get that franchise started in the right direction. You don't need a Matthew Stafford. You don't need a Sam Darnold. Your goal is not to win 6 or 7 games here. Your goal is to say, you know what? Let me find out who our football players of the future are. Let's stack draft picks together. Let's eventually find our superstar young quarterback that we can be rock stars in Vegas for the next decade and possibly win Super Bowls here in Las Vegas. And again, it's not against Tom Brady. He's so competitive that I think it's going to hurt the franchise in the short term here. Just be bad for a couple more years. You got to wait out Patrick Mahomes and Herbert, and now Bo Nix as a rookie. 3 teams in your division have their long-term solutions at quarterback, and you don't. You got to find that guy, not a Band-Aid.
The Raiders have, in the last 22 years, only made the playoffs twice. And those were the 2 seasons the Raiders had an above 500 record. We don't really talk about Las Vegas in the perennial drought that we make fun of the New York Jets for, or other bad teams that we give them a lot of flack. The Las Vegas Raiders, whether it was Oakland or now in Sin City, under the Davis family, has not seen a ton of success in the last 2+ decades. So to Donnie's idea, although I'm a little bit skeptical it's going to work, because the NFL is very different than college football, where you can have a veteran coach in there to pick his predecessor or his successor and then kind of lay the groundwork of an organization. Things in the NFL often work very differently. When you go from one regime to the next, it's obviously cleaning house. It's a complete change of culture, even from one that was previously established. But Pete Carroll does deserve the benefit of the doubt, at least to make things a little bit more stable than perhaps they have been for the last 20+ seasons. So Donnie, to me, although we know his ceiling is not the man that could cook in the Pacific Northwest, the partnership between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, if the personal relationships have not been frayed nearly as much as maybe some of the reports from Russ's time coming to a close with the Seahawks, that would make some sense. I'm not sure you need to pay Sam Darnold, although, as we will show you, $96 million of cap space for Las Vegas this offseason, second most in the NFL, only behind the Patriots, who have $127 million of available cap room. So they do have money to spend. But as Donnie has said, just because John Spytek has the money does not mean it should be divulged all this offseason.
No, it shouldn't. You should be racking that away for a rainy day when there's actually legitimate free agents there that you can get and not extremely overpay for it. Now, granted, they have so much money, they can overpay for a couple positions, but what are you getting here? Like, they are so talented players. They have a wonderful young tight end who, when it's all said and done, might end up in Canton. Still early for that, but Bowers is sensational. Myers is an okay wide receiver. They have nothing at tailback or at the quarterback position, and their secondary and linebackers might be the worst by a wide margin in football. There's so many areas they need to get to, which includes just build it young. Make sure you have enough talent here and draft picks so when you do have lightning to strike with all that money in the bank, you can go out and make those decisions here. Aging quarterback is not the decision you need to make. You need to be bad enough to be able to draft your quarterback of the future. And once you get him, that's when you start to surround him with as much talent as you can possibly get.
I do think there is going to be movement at the top of the 2025 NFL draft. I do believe there is going to be some posturing. I do believe there are going to be some deals. I wonder if that all means that somehow, some way, either the Raiders moving up ever so slightly or even remaining at 6th overall, that Shedeur Sanders falls into their lap. It would seem to be that matrimony that you would want. Brady knows the Sanders family. Brady has mentored Shedeur Sanders many a time. Of course, we know that Dion and his son would love to play in Las Vegas as opposed to places like Tennessee or Cleveland. Just something about where things stand right now, Donnie. Almost like Shedeur Sanders' stock has fallen just a little bit, that maybe he is not just a guaranteed 2nd overall pick behind Cam Ward, who's going 1st overall, that I do somehow, some way believe Las Vegas is going to try, at least attempt, to position itself to get Shedeur Sanders.
They should. And, it's up to the general manager and also Tom Brady to get down every single avenue to see what's best for the franchise here. I didn't think it was going to be Matthew Stafford, but I will never, ever be disappointed that if you're in the draft and you feel like you have your guy, go out and get that guy and jumpstart your franchise. If he's not there, don't double down and take a veteran quarterback to get an extra win. If you don't get your guy this year, there'll be another guy next year. Just keep tanking until you can get that guy.
So let's talk those QBs in the top of the draft next. Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they've lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The NFL.
With Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. But for me, there was never a doubt coming out. Shedeur Sanders is a very talented quarterback and deservingly so should go high in the draft. But Cam Ward, to me, has always been the better quarterback overall. And it's not like, what do you fit into? Because Colorado didn't have a running game. Their offensive line wasn't very good. But, Shedeur is really schooled. His father was an NFL player, reading defenses, making big plays, being in the moment, understanding no matter what stage he gets on, the lights are not going to be too bright for him. He was born right into that, which is a big point of conference. If it's like, hey, Carson Wentz, who came from, the Dakotas all the way over to Philadelphia, how does he fit into the big city? You don't get that with Shedeur. He goes to New York City right away. He's comfortable and he's ready to live in the limelight no matter which team he goes to. But at the same time, Cam Ward, effortless in the pocket, can make every single throw, played in an up-tempo offense, just absolutely looks the part. And if you watch him in big moments, remember when they opened up the season last year against the Florida Gators? I needed 3 pass attempts and 3 pocket, appearances here from me. Like, you know what? This kid looks like nothing can absolutely get to him. I'm excited for Cam Ward and also agree, minus 200, he should be the first quarterback taken and first overall player taken in the draft.
And I think he will be, right? Not just the first QB out there, but the question is, DRS, who is the person, who is the team making that first overall pick? Is it the Tennessee Titans, who currently hold that first overall selection? We would assume with the Titans in desperate need of a quarterback and under a new GM in Mike Borgonzi, with an offensive-minded head coach in Brian Callahan entering his second year in Nashville, it would be a match made in heaven. And yet, a lot of conversation around Tennessee. Borgonzi himself saying they would be open to fielding phone calls. They have already received a couple of phone calls about that first overall pick, and then some reports about the New York Giants trying to make a move up the board to get their quarterback of the future. As we entered Combine Week, the Titans were a minus 360 favorite to make that number 1 overall pick. Now, minus 170. Still minus money, still a hefty odds-on favorite, but not nearly what it was just about a week ago. It is smokescreen season. It is lying season. It is posturing season. You take everything you read and hear with a grain of salt. Ultimately, Donnie, who makes that first overall pick come the end of April in just under 2 months?
I still think it's going to be the Tennessee Titans because you have the number 1 overall pick with a legitimate quarterback on the board from a quarterback-needy team. It does make sense. But understand this, too. I remember going back about a decade or so, Chip Kelly, when he was at the Philadelphia Eagles, and Marcus Mariota was coming out of college, and the Tennessee Titans had the number 1 overall pick. Chip Kelly was giving up, in Philadelphia, they had a do-the-deal type tag here where everybody just wanted Marcus Mariota no matter what happened. Like Fletcher Cox, who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, multiple first-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks, pick whoever you want off the football team. And the Tennessee Titans didn't do that and stuck with Mariota. Didn't work all that well. Now, this time around, let's just say it is the New York Giants in the 3 spot willing to come up and give you an extra first-round pick, and you slide back to 3. Let's just say quarterbacks go 1 and 2. You end up with Abdul Carter and extra first-round picks for the next years where maybe you weren't fully sold on Cam Ward, but at the same time, you're not sitting, Ben, in the 2, 3, or 4 spot where you're hoping for scraps to come down. You actually control the draft. And a healthy organization would say, you know what? I've scouted the next 2 years of quarterbacks. Here's who we think is going to be on the board. If we add Abdul Carter, let's just say at number 3, and get an extra first and a second for next year, we might be on the verge of doing something spectacular once we do actually find our guy. So it's an interesting spot the Titans are in for sure, but I think they do draft a quarterback.
We need more draft odds as well. Still just the first overall pick. Hour 2 up next.